tuned in to Getting Real About Life here in among the Moptin Oyate. I'd like to give a shout out to all of the elders out there who are listening. I'd like to also give a shout out to my mother Lillian, and I'd like to give a shout out to Tom and KXSW 89.9 FM and Venture Communications Channel 390 for making all of this possible. My name is Crystal Owen, and I am the community planner for the Moptin Oyate. And on our show, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the projects that we have going on. We are going to have our planning director, Leanne Talbert, will be joining us shortly, and she is going to be our guest today. We're going to be talking about some of the projects that planning has in the works. And there are a lot of exciting things going on for the Oyate today, and we want to keep everybody informed. That's my job as planning in the planning department, is to keep you informed on everything that's going on. We encourage you to always ask questions. We encourage you to find out what's going on. Find out the issues on both sides, every sides of a story. So today we're going to begin our conversation. We're going to talk about the tribal transportation. And I just want to give you some information on that. Yesterday was a pretty historic day for the Moptin Oyate, as Tom Wilson and I rode the tribal transportation bus at 7 o'clock yesterday morning as it made its first run from Sisseton to Agency Village. And we got on the bus and we met the driver, the director of the transportation in Sisseton. And so we're going to show you a little a clip that video that we shot yesterday. It's about 10 minutes, so we want to get into that, and then I want to, after we're done, we're going to answer some questions that I have from concerned members, comments that I have been receiving since yesterday, since we first aired the video. So a lot of exciting things, and I want you to see the video. So we're going to cut to that video, and then we're going to be back, and we're going to answer some questions, and we're going to have a conversation with Miss Leanne Talbert in our show. Good morning. This is Crystal Owen, and we are here, Tom Wilson and I, along with Kathy Holman. Kathy, you want to come over? So Kathy is the, well, I'll let her introduce herself, but this morning Tom and I are getting ready. We're going to go on the first run, this very historic event for the tribe today, because the tribe has purchased 2 of these community transit buses through a federal grant that we received, and we're going to go on the run today and just kind of give you a little idea about what's going on. But I want to introduce you to Kathy Holman, and she's going to tell us a little bit about the project and how it got started.
As Crystal said, I'm Kathy. A grant was written back probably about 3 years ago, and awarded to the tribe $300,000. The tribe had to match 10% of that, so there's $330,000 that will be used to start public transit for the tribe. I'm the executive director of community transit, and the tribe contracted with us because we were already in the area. Our goal is to provide shuttle service to and from Old Agency Village to get people into town to jobs, as well as people out to Old Agency for jobs. Also college students, for whatever purpose you need to use the transit for.
That's pretty exciting. And you know what? That's the first thing my mom said this morning when I told her what was going on. She said, now nobody has an excuse not to get to work somewhere. So this is really pretty exciting, and I'm glad that I want to thank you for partnering up with the tribe, because I think it's good. We have to work together. Tom, did you have something? The cost.
I'm going to grab a poster quick.
Okay. The cost for, she's going to give us some information on The cost to ride the transit, what it costs, because it's not, of course, it's not free. All public transportation does have a cost. So we have.
It's a $5 round trip. $5 round trip from Sisseton out to Old Agency and back, and vice versa. And then if they want a one-way stop, is $3 if you don't need a ride back and forth. I mean, if you just need to come to town. And then the monies that are collected for the fares are going to offset the expenses every month for the monthly expenses, such as driver wages, fuel, maintenance, and any costs incurred by the vehicle. So that will help defray some of the costs to the tribe. And then I also was going to mention that in the planning office, Vivi will be writing, once this gets up and going and it's successful, operating grant will be written. Hopefully they're successful so that it can continue on, because obviously $330,000 isn't going to go on forever. So every year an operating grant will be written to continue the service.
What about passes? Would there be like passes where you could buy a?
Yes, we will have bus tickets available for purchase. Also, for some of the folks that are living on fixed incomes, there are going to be some places that are going to be sponsoring rides and giving out tickets as well. So.
And where would they purchase these?
The tickets can be purchased through community transit, as well as we will have them on the bus too, that they can purchase them from the driver.
Tell us about the stops.
Okay, let me get my sheet. Sorry.
Okay, it's a good day for the Sisseton-Wahpeton Sioux Tribe, for that the community transit is starting now today, May 1st, and we are here with today's driver. There'll be different drivers throughout the stops, and we're here. We have a schedule.
Okay, we will be starting at 6:30 in the morning, leaving the community transit garage. Our first stop at 6:35 will be the Sisseton-Wahpeton housing. Then at 6:40 we will head over to the Sisseton-Wahpeton apartments. Then the next stop will be Dakota Connection at 6:50. Then the next stop will be here at Dakota Crossing at 7:10. Then the next stop will be 7:20 at I-29 Motel. And then the next stop will arrive at Old Agency Village with a stop at 7:35 at Dakota Western, and then 7:40 at the Sisseton-Wahpeton Community College. And then the last stop will be the SWO admin building at 7:45, so folks, if they need rides there to work and to college and whatnot, we're going to make it a timely fashion so everybody can get to work on time. And then we will stop at the House of Hope at 7:50 as well, and then the Agency C-Store at 7:55, and then head back into town, and then we'll make some stops in town as well. This schedule is tentative. It will be subject to change as we get things smoothed out to. So we'll be changing the schedule probably quite frequently until we get a regular schedule that works for everybody.
So there you have it. That's pretty much all the information. More information to come once the schedule gets settled in. And of course, there's going to be some bumps. There's going to be some kinks in the road. So we ask that you be patient with the transit system, and that we are doing our best. And I want to thank again Vivian Tateyushkashka for working on the grant, the planning department, the tribal chairman, all the executives, tribal council, everybody that played a part. And I think, a couple years ago when this grant first came in, Bruce Renville was chairman at that time. So I want to acknowledge that, and I want that, to be known. And he's the one who set up the agreement with the state. Yeah, talk a little bit about that.
Bruce Renville met with us at Community Transit 4 years ago. He had this vision long before he was the tribal chairman, and he was the one that was proactive in getting this going. So would like to give out a shout out to Bruce. Thank you very much, Bruce. Your dream has finally become a reality.
Awesome! That's so exciting, and it's just a good lesson in that dreams do come true. So planning is important. So all of these things that we're doing make a difference in our community for every single person. So again, as you want to get onto the shuttle, if you ever do, look at all the parking spots that you can park your car and get a ride to work. If your car's not running or whatever the reason, but there's different parking spots. Woodrow Wilson has a parking spot over there. The store has a lot of parking spaces. Dakota Connection. So there's a lot of good resources that we're getting.
In the future, we plan on doing like an elderly run if they want to go to Watertown or something like that, shopping as well. That's in the makings too. So.
One thing my mom asked this morning, she said, I wonder how helpful they would be, because she has a walker. So if she's home by herself and she called for a ride, would they help her get out of the house?
Yeah, we're a door-to-door service. We assist. We get them out to the bus. The bus is accessible. All drivers are trained in PASS training. They have to be certified so that they have all the means to help whoever the client is.
Nice. Very nice. Thank you. So, Tom, should we get ready?
Yep, we'll get on.
We're going to get going. We're going to get on the bus.
Riders.
Yay, the first riders.
You're setting me off
Okay.
the schedule.
Hi, so we're back. I hope you enjoyed that video clip that we recorded for prosperity, for all of history to see. And again, I want to remind everybody that in the job, the work that we do in media and getting the word out to community, our job is just that, to get the word out. We don't mean to offend. I don't mean to offend. I don't mean to forget anybody. So I just want to give a shout out to, when we have projects in our community, there's always more than one person that is involved. We have a ton of people. There's everybody puts their minds together to see how things can go, and everybody has input. And so our job is to educate and to get that information to you so that you can make an educated decision, that you can know what's going on. Because our goal at Planning Department is to let everybody know what's going on all of these projects, because we value your opinion. The people of the Siston-Wahpeton Oyate, of the town of Sisseton, and all of the surrounding communities are resources, and we value your opinion. And so we're excited about the tribal transportation partnering with transportation in Sisseton. So I just wanted to say that, because there are so many people that are involved. On the video, as I watched it, I want to also acknowledge Miss Ella Robertson. She was working in the planning department, and she had a lot to do with getting the initial grant going, finding a grant writer, and all of those types of things. So I want to acknowledge her, as well as Mr. Bruce Renville, and all of the staff. I mean, the secretaries, everybody who works in one department, everybody has a hand, and everybody puts in time and effort into making these things happen in our community, and that's what makes it so exciting when we can all get together and do that. And so I want to just remind all of you to stay involved in that. And again, if you want to find a ride on that tribal transportation, let's see if I can find the number here, but I will get you that number, and you can find a ride. Now again, yesterday I rode the shuttle and I got to work on time, and so after work too, it's there, and I can get a ride home. So there's a lot of good things going on in that regard. So I want to give a shout out before we go any further with our show this afternoon. I want to give a shout out to Junior and Benji who are listening, and Mike Peters, who are listening over there at the IHS maintenance, listening in. They're always tuned into the show, also tuned into KXSW, and we really appreciate that. We appreciate you tuning in and listening. And so we're going to talk a little bit about, while we wait for our guest, we are waiting for Miss Leanne to come in, and we're going to talk a little bit about planning and some of the projects that we have going on as soon as she gets here. So in the meantime, I want to talk a little bit about understanding change in our community until she gets here. When we have change in our community, change, when we talk about change is a fact of life. Change happens all the time. Sometimes people don't like change. Sometimes people find it hard to adjust to change, or they find it hard to accept change. But to be an effective leader in your community, you have to understand, you must understand what change is and how others will respond to it. And so it's all a learning process as we go about talking about change in our community. We all want things to be better. We all have thoughts and ideas, and we all like to feel valued when we're making those thoughts and ideas. And so when we talk about understanding change, we have to think about the pros and the cons of change, the good and the bad. And anytime we make a decision, we always tend to look at the pros and the cons. What's good, what's bad, what works, what won't. And then just kind of looking at that whole big picture. So the change, when we talk about that, if you would like to change something in your life, some of the things, there's a three-step process that we talk about. Number one, again, you have to identify the pros and the cons in our ever-changing environment. What are you going to need to do differently in order to create that change, in order for that change to be successful? What are you going to have to do? Because we are reminded that change is everywhere, and in any new change, new environment, of course the way we do operate is always going to change, the way we operate on our daily basis, because we have to take into fact that other people have an influence on our decisions. They have an influence on the choices that we make and the things that happen. Things can't ever stay the same. So a lot of change going on, and especially with our tribal transit, that is going to change the way we probably do business in our community. That's going to change the way some people might say, well, I can't work because I don't have a ride or I don't have a car. Well, that's all going to change now, because there is this tribal transportation that is going to be able to get you to your destination. And when we spoke yesterday with the director of the tribal transportation, she really assured us that she is going to help you. They work with you. They'll put you on their schedule just so that you have a good way to get to and from point A and B. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Again, change is everywhere. Change sometimes creates chaos. It creates some turbulence. So we have to remember that and try to keep our cool and breathe as we make those changes. So we're waiting, talking about change, learning how to respond to change in our communities. There's a lot of projects that are going to happen. And as community planner, I'm finding that I've already been out there. I visited 2 of our districts in this past month, which was very good. And I love to go to the districts because they're so you get to actually converse and see the people who are there. You get to meet new people. You get to hear questions that they have. And even though I don't have all the answers or I don't know all the answers, if I have a question given to me, I will get answers for you. I'll find that information out. So that's kind of my job, is to help people to understand. So one of the programs that we talked about at the district meeting was the tribal project on the hemp project. And so we have, anytime we talk about programs or projects, or if we have an idea about something, it's always good to do a lot of research. And I always encourage people, as I encourage myself, to do a lot of research. We have our phones, we have our computers, we have the internet that we can get on, we have the library is a great source. We have a library, public library in Sisseton, and we also have one here out at Agency Village. So using those resources to find information is right almost at our fingertips when we go into the different areas that we can find information on the internet. There's so many places. So you find out what you want to learn about, and I encourage you to find out all you can for yourself. Get to know something. If you hear the tribe is doing something or is thinking about contemplating another project, well, get on the phone and call up. Call up and ask and say, I've heard that, I like this project, or I don't like this project, or just, make your views be heard. Because, again, your view is very important to us in planning, and to the tribe as a whole. So when we talk about change, that's one of the things is prepare yourself for that change that's coming, and keep an open mind about change. Keep an open mind about things that are happening all around you, even in your own families. Change is everywhere. And so we want to learn how to respond to that change in a good, positive way, because that is, there's an opportunity in every crisis that comes up. There's always an opportunity. And it's always good to make friends with the unknown or the unfamiliar. It brings a sense of good energy when we can make friends, or we can learn something about somebody else that we don't know. And it's always exciting, maybe for some, might bring anxiety for others, if we change our routine. When you think about your own routine, when I think about my routine, as starting from when I, from when I first get up in the morning to you get in a shower, everything seems to be the same way, right? I mean, you start washing, maybe you wash your hair first, or the process. I thought about that the other day, and I was like, I do this same thing every single morning. And so just to change things up, I'm like, I think I'll wash my feet first, or just something like a little crazy like that, and just see how that feels. That's a little reminder that when we want to do something different, and then see how it makes us feel. So again, change your routines up if you have that opportunity. It will help you to develop an instant perspective on it. And that's kind of what we're talking about today here, is talking about change and talking about our community and how important you are to your community, to your children as they look up. Everything that we talk about is connected. It's not always just about one thing. It's about how we feel about that thing, our values, what things that we value in our life. So again, when we talk about planning, me as working in a planning department, there are 4 major types of changes in any type of organization. And number 1 is strategic, structural, people-centered, and process-orientated. And so when we want to make changes in our community, we have to think about the big picture. How is everything connected in our community? How can one project be more important than another project? And that is going to be determined by asking people, asking community, researching all the data, finding out about what's important to us in our, where do we see our tribe going in 10 years, even 50 years, when 50 years is a long time. You know, I probably won't be here in 50 years. But where does my vision for my family, for my grandchildren, where does that take us? And so now, while I am here for this very single day, that thought is important to me. And I like to always remember that when I think about change, when I think about the tribe, and when I think about all these projects that are going on. And I would like to try to stay positive in those thoughts. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that today while we're waiting for our guest to get here this afternoon. And so our show is Getting Real About Life on the Res. And I've been doing the talk show for probably, I'm going to say at least maybe off and on for the last 4 years. And I love to visit with community. I love to give you information, bring you information, put ideas onto the table. And Getting Real About Life, we've had a lot of different topics on our show. And if you have a topic that you would like to discuss, we encourage you to get a hold of the station manager, Tom Wilson, or you can get a hold of me and we can set something up. You can come in and we got a chair right here that you can sit down right in this chair. It's empty right now. You can sit down in this chair and you can come and talk to us about your idea or your concern. And we always encourage positive, solution-based conversation. And that's the one thing that we do. So one of the projects that we work on, that we're currently working on, is again the hemp project. And so again, I got a book called The Great Book of Hemp, and what that is. So I want to share some information with you on that. Right now we are in the background. I'll give you some background. In 2001, the North Dakota state law defined industrial hemp as cannabis sativa with a delta 9 THC content of 0.3% or less. The 2014 Federal Farm Bill recognized industrial hemp for the first time under federal law. It allowed states to implement research programs to study the growth, cultivation, and marketing of industrial hemp. The North Dakota Department of Agriculture created the Industrial Hemp Research Pilot Program to increase understanding of how industrial hemp fits into the current agricultural landscape and to investigate how it may contribute to the economy in North Dakota. And just so you all know, Siston Mopton Oyate has land in North Dakota. So, our guest is here. So we're going to invite Leanne to come to the table and join us in the conversation. And I really admire Leanne because, well, not only because she's my boss, but more importantly because she is so knowledgeable. As planning director, I'm getting to know her, and I'm getting to know all of the good things she's done throughout her career. And I'm really very, very impressive. So I want to let her take over the conversation, because I really value her, and I'm sure once you hear some of the things that we're working on in the planning department, you're going to have the same feeling too. So welcome, Leanne.
Oh, thank you, Crystal. I'm glad to be here. First time I've ever done this in a long time. So thank you, Tom, and thank KXSW. Excuse me. I was trying to eat lunch on the way here in the car. For the planning department, since I came on board last July, I was given the charge of trying to restructure the planning department in a way where it becomes more inclusive and works and serves the government as a whole. And since that time, we've gotten requests from also individual commission members to, at some point in the future, expand strategic planning services to our districts when requested to do so. That doesn't mean that we're going to supplant anybody's services. It just means that we're an additional resource to provide technical assistance or research on funding strategies, funding resources, development in terms of nonprofits or community development corporations. So it really depends on what the districts want and if they feel that there's a need for our services. We're not at that point right now because we have a very skeleton crew. But in the last 9 months, we've added several positions, one being Crystal's position as a community planner too. This is something our department has always lacked, and it's integral to doing good planning, and that is getting community outreach, getting information out there to our individual members, to our districts, to our elected officials, our general membership on what is planning doing. What's in the pipeline? What type of projects are we anticipating, either directed by the council or identified as needs or gaps in services? But to get that information out as we're doing that so it doesn't come as a surprise. So it's a critical point. Her position is incredibly important. This TV show is our kickoff to actually taking that to the next level. For those, I heard an elder that said to me one day, she said, well, we can't always get to these meetings. We don't have gas money. That's a valid comment. But they can turn on the TV and they can see what we're doing. So Crystal's show is going to be a regular. It's going to be part of her duties in planning to bring different people on to talk about initiatives or needs, and it's all about how do we build healthy communities, how do we make our reservation a good place to live, raise families, grow old and retire. No different than any other city or county or state, but how do we improve the quality of life on our reservation for all of our members? So we're going to touch on a lot of issues, and we don't want to be afraid to discuss those issues or those needs. But as corny as it says, I said to Crystal the other day, it comes back to that same old saying, you're either part of the problem or part of the solution. The planning department wants to be part of the solution and not just talk about things, but actually get plans done and implement them. So we have stuff in the pipeline. A lot of this stuff was initiated by the former planning director, Ella Robertson, and I wrote the grants at that time under my company. And those grants got funded. By that time, I was in the planning department, and so then it fell on the staff to do implementation. One of those ones that is the hemp that Crystal was talking about, which is very exciting. Here's an example of a new development that is very multifaceted. Not only is it sustainable development, it's going to improve our environment. It's going to grow a crop that is going to get us away from an overabundance of herbicides, fertilizers. It's also going to be processed into hemp products that are good for the environment, that hopefully will generate jobs for everybody in this region and increase the economic foundation of our tribe. Right now, as everyone knows, we have gaming, but we want to diversify that, and we want to diversify that through responsible economic development, and that includes hemp. I would have to say 2 years ago when we went down this path and I was doing the research on the hemp, I could not have even envisioned that there would be such a quick turnaround in the public opinion about hemp. And we all know now that Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, is sponsoring a bill to legalize hemp, take it off the DEA list of prohibited substance, because it isn't. It is not marijuana. You said that, right?
Right.
Okay, it's not marijuana.
You cannot get high from it.
You cannot get high from it. I mean, you could smoke it, but you could probably burn your throat. And it's already here. I mean, to be real honest, we have feral hemp all over the reservation because in World War II, the Department of Defense was asking farmers to grow hemp. And so North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota have a lot of hemp because it was just a good place to grow it. So there is feral hemp. And for years, DEA went around trying to get rid of all of it, but they were never quite successful. And we call it ditchweed. So we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're simply taking it to the next level, and the technology has improved so much now that there's enormous opportunities for not only the tribe to grow industrial hemp, but individual tribal members who want to farm their own land. And we're yet to work out the mechanics of that, but right now it's in the development stage. We're taking what I always call the baby steps. We're going through the feasibility study with USDA. We want to learn from the mistakes of other tribes. We can't just jump into it and defy the system. We need to jump through all the bureaucratic hoops. That's what we're doing because we want to do development in a responsible manner. And also we want to respect our funder who went out on the limb to fund this for us. And that was the Bureau of Indian Affairs. I don't think they knew at that time that the legislation was going to move as quickly any more than we did, but it's very fortuitous that we're in this place right now, 2 years later, and going through the study. So Crystal will be talking more on that. She'll have other guests that are much more knowledgeable than I am about hemp. We've got an excellent team with the University of Minnesota. That's our contractor, an agronomist, a botanist, an economic person. I forget what the other guy does already. But we've got a good team in place. The transit system, did you talk about that?
Yeah, we talked a little bit, but we'd love to hear.
Okay, the transit system, again, that's a culmination of a lot of people's efforts.
Right.
It started, several years ago. I think when, the way I recall is when Bruce Renville was the grants coordinator under the tribal secretary. And he had asked me at that time if I would write the transit grant, and I had another grant. So he reassigned it to someone else, and they wrote the initial transit grant. And that's when he was grants coordinator. He then went on to become chairman, and then he implemented it, I think, in a different way. And at some point, I think there was a second grant written, but we're in the process of trying to compile all that record so we have a clear history and chronology of events on that event. But from that point, it went to Vivian because she's the transportation planner. She works for the planning department as well as Department of Transportation under Cliff Eberhardt. And her and Cliff then really took the lead on that and got it to the point where we got the buses purchased and delivered. And a lot of thanks goes to Cliff along the way as well for all of his support. And Vivian, of course, for all of her writing and her work. And then our staff that came in, the DOT staff that came down to train, our finance office, and Ramona. I think it was Ladine on that project. So there's a whole lot of players that made this a reality to that day yesterday when Tom and Crystal were on the, what do you call that first, maiden voyage, if it were a ship.
Maiden voyage.
Whatever it was. But there were a whole lot of people along the way. We want to thank all of them. I want to thank all those people that played an integral role in seeing it become a reality. Further plans are, we're hoping planning is going to go into some pretty crunch time work here over the next 12 months. We want to expand the transit system. It'll be under Cliff Eberhardt, again, planning. We don't run programs. We develop them. We do the strategic planning. We try to get the money to start the project, but ongoing operation, it's going to be under Department of Transportation, of course, under Cliff Eberhardt, and we're hoping to create Lake Reservation Transit System or Transit Authority. That's yet to be decided, but we'll be serving, I need some water. We'll be serving the entire reservation. And so for questions that people have, are we going to expand and have other runs? Yes, we are. And our goal is to eventually have bus routes that serve all 7 districts, possibly Waubay, possibly Summit Community, other communities, maybe New Effington, places where we have members residing. So that's in the long-term plans. And we'll be building a facility, a bus transit facility on the reservation down the road. The current run between Agency Village and the town assistant is under a 5-year contract, and that'll stay that way for that 5 years. And at that point, they'll have to decide if they want to continue to operate that run with us or we enter some kind of partnership. But like I said, nothing's been decided. Let's see. So that's for that project. We have so many here. The Carnegie Library, did you speak about that?
No, not yet.
Carnegie is a real classic example of why community outreach and public input process is real critical. That's a facility that's owned by all of us, by all the tribal members, and planning's role is not to make the decision, not to tell our leadership what they should or they shouldn't do, but simply provide a forum and an opportunity for our members to express their opinions, and for those opinions to be heard, and then a consensus arrived at on what's the best solution, long-term solution or permanent solution. That's what our role is. We don't have an agenda on it. If we have an agenda, it's to ensure that there is a public participation process on all of our projects. And so the Carnegie offered a really kind of fun way of doing that because of its historical significance and the fact that there was a need, and we're trying to identify a solution that is in the best interest of the majority of the people. And that's kind of where it's at. And the commission will be taking that and making recommendations to the council based on that information. Sometimes we arrive at decisions with insufficient information in the past, and that's the whole point of Crystal's job here, is to make sure that our tribal members have input on our decisions. Let's see. Dakota Connection expansion. We all know that we need to fix that place. Aside being one of my favorite places to go, and a whole lot of other people, it's old, and it's decrepit, and it's falling apart, and we need to replace it. We've made an investment in there. It's outlived its usable life. It's more than paid for itself, but it still has the number one thing that's important for economic development, and that's location. So location is key to any kind of economic venture, and we have that. It's on the I-29 corridor. So we're approaching that in a typical way that a planning department would approach any kind of reuse or expansion or new use, and that is step one is to do the master plan. We're doing a master plan on that site, the land, and what's suitable to put out on that land, and from the master plan, once we determine that, or our elected officials determine that, then we'll be able to develop a preliminary engineering report from that for a wastewater treatment plant. What kind of wastewater treatment plant hasn't been decided yet, or what kind of water and sewer system hasn't been decided yet. That's why we're going through the master planning process and the engineering process. Both of those documents are absolutely required for us to get the money to actually build the solution, to go out and get rural development or EDA or state money to actually make this a reality. Our anchor tenant, which is our gaming, of course, is our number one priority, but it's not their responsibility to worry about water and sewer any more than it would be for any other business coming into a city. The city would provide that. The city would make sure that they have the access roads. All they got to do is hook up to the water system. So we're trying to put in a traditional development process for doing new development, and that would be the tribe's responsibility as the owner out there. The same goes to Buffalo Lake District. They have a need for us to fix the water and sewer. It's affecting their business, and so as owners of that property, we have to be responsible owners, and so that's why our priority is on making sure that we improve the infrastructure out there, so that whether it's a district business or gaming business or Dakota Nation Industries business, that they can operate and be successful without having to worry about access roads or water and sewer, basic functions, electricity, and so that's what the planning department is handling. And then, of course, it'll go out our door when it comes to actually doing the streets and et cetera. Will go to our Department of Transportation. There are logical steps that it'll take. Again, we just do the strategic planning and putting together the funding applications. Let me see, what else are we doing here? We've got Department of Transportation, their work. We're working on, currently we're working with Department of Transportation on another project down the road, and with Tribal Roads, again, is a replacement facility. We're growing as a tribe, and so you're going to see a lot of work of the planning department focused on helping other departments meet their needs, like Tribal Roads building is falling apart. So we're providing grant writing assistance and strategic planning assistance to Tribal Roads and Department of Transportation to identify a suitable location and get the money in so they can build a facility that's going to meet not only the needs of the roads department but also our future transit system. And that's in the very preliminary stages, and at some point down the road, I'm sure Crystal will have Cliff on to go into the details of that.
Yes.
That's all kind of boring, but do you have any?
Well, I just have, that is a lot. That is
Yeah.
so much. And it's exciting that we're having this conversation on all of these topics because it gives us all something to look forward to. And we have to know in our community, even for planning, you know, one of the things for my role and all of us in planning, our roles are transparency,
Yes.
visibility, you know, creating that greater visibility for you, the community. And so that's why we're here. We want to be on the radio, on the TV, so that we can bring you this information to directly to your homes. And we hope that, you know, that we can get the word out there, and that you would help us get the word to know that we're here, going to be here every Wednesday from 1 till 2. And next week we are going to have Charlene Miller
Oh, yay.
for next week, next Wednesday. She'll be a guest on the show. So that's going to be exciting. And she's going to talk about the hemp grow, the actual planting, what's going to happen with that.
Oh, and also about the new grant we just got in, which is the Keep Eagle, which was in the paper, and I'll let her talk about that, what her plans are for that.
Yeah. So a lot of exciting things going on in planning.
Yeah.
So, yeah, planning is
I'd
good.
just like to say, look in the Shota for an article that we're planning that will introduce all the new staff and our structure. Like I said, we want our tribal members to know what we are doing, and in terms of what strategic planning is. And if I could get in one little kind of commercial is, I would really like to see our colleges and our school counselors, our parents and our young people to really consider planning as a career. There's not a lot of people that go to planning school. There's a lot of people become lawyers in our tribe. A lot of people become social workers. The teachers would probably say we need more tribal members to become teachers, but become a planner or become an architect or an engineer. If you want to work on your reservation and it's about building, whether it's roads and streets or schools or houses or parks or whatever it is, we have an enormous need for trained planners, architects, and engineers in our tribe. And at some point, we're planning department's hoping to do a kind of like a little fair where we'll bring in architects, engineers, and planners and kind of do maybe a career day type of thing and some exercises. But to get our younger tribal members to really consider this as a profession, because it is needed. I've been doing planning and grant writing for over 30 years, and I've worked from the East Coast to the West Coast. And there's just not a lot of Indian people that ever go into this field, so I really hope that they do. You know, and I would encourage our younger people to really think about that. Planning is not just grant writing, and grant writing is not just planning. They're both part of a bigger process, and we need it. When we think about how we should have done things in a better way, I always try to tell younger people and anybody that I come across is that Indians are natural-born planners when you think about it, because it's all about preparation. And our ancestors didn't wait until the first storm to go start, gathering food. They were always preparing one season ahead of time. That's called planning, because they knew what was happening. So they planned ahead of time, and it was a matter of survival. So the way I've always looked at it is that I'm just doing what my ancestors did, which was preparation and planning.
That says it all. Preparation and planning.
Yep.
And that's why we're here. And we have about 3 minutes to close out our show. It is almost 2 o'clock. And I wanted to say thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Leanne, for coming and being our first guest on our show. Isn't this exciting? Now just look at
It's
this
exciting,
setup.
even though you didn't give me a choice.
I'm like, you got to be there. But and when I had the radio show too, that sometimes people say they'll come, but they can't make it. So we have to make do with what we have, and we just kind of use our experiences and just talk about. And that's part of the planning process too.
Yes.
Is just keeping everything in mind, remembering where we came from, remember looking for that vision of where we want to go. And that's
Exactly.
our job. We're just here to help you, give you that information so you know. It's exciting.
Thank you, Crystal.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And look forward to watching her show.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you in the community, if you have not been out here to see the green room here that they do the show, you should come out. You really should. Tom is here most days. He puts in a lot of hours. He's like working from 7 in the morning till probably 10, 11 at night sometimes. So he's here.
Yep.
So come in here and ask for a tour. Maybe that's one thing we might want to do is have a little tour, a community tour. Maybe have some hot dogs so people can come out. That could be a show. But I want to thank you again for tuning in. And Tom again, thank you, KXSW, and Venture Channel 390. Tell everybody about it. And if you have an idea for a show you would like to be a guest, let me know, and we'd love to have you as a guest. So, thank
right.
you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Community Transit. So they have partnered with the Oyate, with the tribe, and getting the bus schedule up and running. So we're real thankful for their partnership and working together with Sisseton and Agency Village so that we can have transportation back and forth every day. So be on the lookout for these 2 buses. You can tell they have Sisseton-Wahpeton Transportation, and there's a logo of the tribe on the back there, on each side at the back. So it's pretty exciting. We're here. We're going.
6:30 in the morning to 6:30 in the evening we will be running.
All day. So it's exciting. We're just talking about it, and we're saying, you know what? It might be a good idea to have a ride. Like just park your car and then get a ride to work every morning. Cost you about $25 a week. But again, remember, that's less worry, less hassle. You could just get on the bus, especially in the wintertime. Kathy reminded us that when the bus comes, it's going to be nice and warm, and all you do is just hop on the bus. Kathy, is it kid-friendly?
Yes, it is. We're going to implement some summer recreation programs to get the kids from old agency into participate in city rec programs, Sisseton city rec programs, so I think that's pretty exciting.
There you have it. It is kid-friendly. And Tom, was there other questions anybody had? Oh, there's a, it is wheel, if you could see here on this.
Every 3 months.
Were you born from 1945 through 1965? People born during these years have the highest rates of hepatitis C, yet most don't know that they are infected. Hepatitis C is the leading cause of liver cancer, but you can do something about it. Talk to your doctor about getting tested. It could save your life. Visit www.cdc.gov/no-more-hepatitis.
This message is for all of you sitting in the passenger seat. And apologies if it gets a little uncomfortable, but how does it feel to be at the mercy of someone who thinks